What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Armchair Wrestling. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Armchair Wrestling. I am your host, as always, top boy number one booker, Alex Bennison, and we are joined by a very special guest, as we normally are on these live streams. We are joined by one half of one of the best wrestling tag teams in the Impact Wrestling scene at the moment. One half of the North is Josh Alexander. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, man. I feel like I just stepped into a Christopher Nolan film with that intro.
We don't do anything by halves here at the Buzz. We like to just go full throttle and throw everything at it. We're in your face all the time.
I love it. Yeah. No, things are good, man.
At the bottom of the screen, obviously, you can see there's a little ticker. And obviously, on screen now, I'm about to throw up. We've got a Manscaped promo code that you can use at checkout. If you use code SYG2020, you'll get 20% off and free delivery. It's great for this time of year, especially when you're trying to save a bit of money around the Christmas period. Maybe you want to shell out and get yourself a little bit, but you might feel a bit too indulging. You can save yourself a little bit and get that free shipping, which is always a key thing to look for. So yeah, use code SYG2020, courtesy of the Buzz. But
yeah, if you're George the Animal Steel, hop on that promo code. You got a back like mine. Oh, yeah.
You might need somebody to help you do it, but
that's why I got married, man.
I mean, we're going to get comments flying in and out. We've already got a comment from Joe. He's a big fan of you. And I imagine most people are, because you are a fantastic in-ring worker. At Armchair Wrestling, we always like to start with what you're currently doing. We'll start with what's happening now, and then we'll go back to the past. So, what is Josh Alexander doing currently outside of the wrestling business?
Outside of the wrestling business, I still maintain a 9-to-5. I'm a construction worker. I build homes and condos. The reason I'm doing it is because during this pandemic, all the indie wrestling scene has completely been taken away. So I need to supplement that income that I was losing to support my family. So I'm doing that in the meantime, keeping me busy. And yeah, I'm just trying to get by and hoping things are looking up in 2021, because 2020 has been a rough year for a lot of people, including myself.
Yeah, we've not had the greatest of years, obviously, with everything that's happened, the pandemic that's struck. So on a personal level, you still maintain that work ethic away from the wrestling business as well.
Yeah, it's just the personal responsibility to my my two boys and my wife. You know, got to keep a roof over the head, keep everybody fed. And if I got to pick up a hammer and some tools and go to work, that.
Have we lost connection? I don't know. I'm not quite sure what's happened here. I think we might have lost connection to Josh. So if you just bear with us a few minutes, we'll see if we can get the connection back going. While we wait, though, I will run a quick little promo video. It's just going to show you all the social media accounts that you can reach us on at The Buzz.
Is that better?
Get the Lambo car, house in the hills with the stars. Told you I'd raise the bar, told you that I go far. Baby, it's crystal clear. I'm not a souvenir. I'm not an accessory. I'm a necessity. So come and check me out now. I'm a necessity. So come and check me out now.
I believe the connection's sorted out now. I'm not sure what happened there, but we're
Canadian
back.
snowstorm. Meeting Snowstorm, I know that's been going off and on for about a week now, so I just kicked it onto my data plan, and it'll be fine.
No, not to worry. To be honest, I wish we had snow, but over in England, the snow that we get, it's horrible. It's just slush. It's not that white, fluffy stuff you get.
I just want it for Christmas, and then I can go away.
Yeah, I mean that's the dream Christmas, and hit a bit of a white Christmas snow, and then get rid of it by Boxing Day.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've talked about what 2020 has been like for you outside from the ring. What's it been like for you inside the ring? I know it's been really weird for a lot of wrestling companies like Impact, WWE, and AEW that have been working with no crowds. How does that affect the mentality of being in the ring?
I mean, myself and Ethan Page, we talked about this on his latest vlog at, I think it's YouTube, Ethan Page vlog. But if you guys want to check it out, but like we kind of surmised that 2020 was the most successful year of our careers, either of us. And it was at like the strangest time with all this stuff going on. No crowds, no traveling, everything combined, but somehow we managed to make the best of it. He is obviously a media, juggernaut for professional wrestling. I don't know how else to, describe him. He's got his hand in everything. And, he's definitely made the best of the time off with his own brand. And I've kind of, reap the rewards of that as well. But as far as in the ring at Impact, we couldn't ask for a better year. I couldn't ask for a better year, at least. Crowds or no crowds, I'm interested in putting on the best in-ring product possible. And without having crowds, I think that the in-ring product is even more under a microscope. So the people that are really good at it, they really shine through. And without being cocky or egotistical, I think I'm really good at it. So I think my stuff's starting to shine through, and people are starting to take more notice of how, technically sound I am in a ring.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, obviously whenever we arrange for an interview, we've got to do his research. We can't just go into this walking blind. And I've looked back at some of the matches that you've had over this past year. Going from February, you had that barnstormer with TJP in a singles match, and I thought that was incredible, and the crowd really enjoyed that. To the matches that you've done in tag teams with no crowd there, it seems like the workers pay attention a bit more to those little details now that there's no crowds there.
Yeah, there's no distraction for like the viewer. So before, something might happen and they might cut to a crowd shot, or you might have your eyes on something else going on because the crowd's so rowdy or something, insane. This time, like, it's so quiet when you're out there. Like, we don't have Josh and Madison or Josh and Matt Stryker's voice playing over a loudspeaker.
Oh,
okay.
I'm waiting for a gong.
Yeah. A gong?
Yeah.
No, it'll turn right back on. That's my bad.
No, not to worry. Yeah. So you know what? While you saw.
Disaster. No, there we go. Sorry about that.
No, not to worry. I mean, this is what happens when you do live stream podcasts. Anything can happen.
I just don't want to be the bad one, man. Come on. I'm trying to make this go smooth.
Don't worry, we had one arranged for last week and we got no showed, so you're already a step above.
All right, we won't name names though, right?
No, we won't go there. We've had a comment come through from Joe. He's put, who are you looking forward to working with from AEW? Obviously, this is coming from the Impact AEW now working together.
I mean, number one is the FTR North Dream match. I don't think somebody had told me that they don't think they've seen any more dream match scenarios than the North against FTR mentioned for the AEW Impact merger thing that might occur or is occurring. I don't know. So that we were really humbled by that because we've sought after being one of the best tag teams in the world, and PWI came out the top 50 tag teams in the past couple of weeks, and we were number 4. FTR was number 1, and guess what? Tag teams number 2 and 3, they don't exist anymore. So I guess that bumps us up to number 2. So if we want to find out who the best tag team in the world is, I think that's the matchup. I can do dream scenarios all day long. I would love to wrestle Jurassic Express. I think they're unique, even though they kind of stole our finisher that we invented and created. The Young Bucks, I would love to run that back with them. Penta and Phoenix, we've wrestled them in a three-way tag team, but never in just a regular tag match. There's so many dream scenarios. They have like a deep talent pool for tag teams, especially. So, we're open to all new things. So hopefully something can occur.
Yeah, I think the wrestling world is buzzing, seeing that bit of working together between Impact and AEW. And the main thing is the tag teams that are going to be merging together now. Yeah, like you said, AEW have a fantastic range of tag teams, and it's just take your pick at who you want the North to face.
There's just so many possibilities, and like the fact that fans exploded with interest right away, that brought me back to the Monday Night Wars when you didn't know what was going to happen. Like that uncertainty draws a lot of interest. So you have like casual fans coming out. I had a guy up here. I live in I say Northern Canada because everybody thinks Canada is Toronto and that's it. I'm north of Toronto in the middle of nowhere. And I had a guy come up to me in my local gym and he was just like, "Oh man, did you see what happened last night? Kenny Omega is going to go to Impact." And like, he knows I'm an Impact. But like, he was just like, "I haven't been this excited for wrestling in 30 years, which is crazy to me. But that's how a lot of people feel.
Yeah, and it seems very weird that a buzz like this has happened on a year where everything seems to be all up in the air, with like 2020 with being no fans, but there's still that big buzz for wrestling. Do you think that although the year's maybe been a bit of a downhill spiral for a lot of wrestling companies that are indie promotions, it's been a bit of a building block towards a lot of these mainstream talent promotions like AEW and Impact?
Yeah, because you take the indie scenario out of it. So all these fans that used to be diehard indie only fans, because I've met thousands of them over the years, they only support their local indie. I'm sure in the UK there's some too that would only support Attack or only support Progress or whatever. That stuff on TV is not for them. Now they have nowhere else to go. So if they want the wrestling fix, they got to pick a company. And I think that's why you're getting a lot of the companies, like the interfeud of fans. Like you see AEW say you can't be a fan of WWE if you're an AEW fan, or yada yada. Like all this compartmentalization of like whose team you're on. And it's just diehard fans. They need to get their fix and they need to figure out who they want. And I think mixing everything is just the icing on the cake, especially in 2020, to gain even more interest for all the companies.
So let's steer away from wrestling a little bit, because we are in the holiday season, 5 days till Christmas now. Is there any Christmas traditions at the Alexander household?
I have a 6-year-old son and a 2.5-year-old son, and we do Elf on the Shelf, obviously. So every morning my 2.5-year-old wakes up and my 6-year-old will play along and even be like, "Oh, you got to find Elfie. You got to find Elfie." So he'll be running around the house trying to find him, doing whatever he's doing. He was riding a Triceratops on top of the refrigerator this morning, by the way. Other than that, my wife and I, we try to buy each other a ornament every year. But Christmas tradition, I didn't grow up with a big family. I was kind of like, it was just me and my mom. And so like just Christmas has always been special. I try to watch Home Alone and Home Alone 2 and Die Hard all on Christmas. That's about it.
So are you one of these people that says that Die Hard's a Christmas film?
I mean, yeah, why not?
It was a big argument between a lot of the people that are out the buzz, that people were saying, well, it can't be a Christmas film. It's not based around Christmas. It's just set at Christmas. And I think it's one of the many arguments that people try to find at Christmas is it a Christmas film or not?
Yeah, I've seen the arguments with, there's tons of other examples too, that people, if you're counting that, you got to count this because there's a Christmas tree in it and it happens during that time. But like, I don't know. It always felt like a Christmas movie to me for some reason, just because, and it's because of the police officer. He's talking about his family having to work on Christmas Day and stuff. So you get like a little bit of Christmas emotion.
So I watched your Impact little trailer that they made for you in 2019, I believe it was, and they talked to you about how you became a wrestling fan, where the love for the sport and the sheer drive for it that you had as well. Because to be honest, your story is it's amazing. It's inspirational, especially through the things that you fought through to get to where you are at the moment. But I'd like to jump back to the start of that. So what was the early wrestling memories for you?
Early wrestling memories, man, like I look back at it now and it's kind of all in a fog and a haze because I went to every single show I could. I wanted to be in a ring as much as possible. I had a complete reckless disregard for my health and well-being. Anytime I was in a ring, I was just it's that old I don't know if it's from Dark Side of the Ring or no, it's from Beyond the Mat, I think. But Spike Dudley says he loves the pop of the crowd, right?
Yeah,
that's the film where he does it, and like I related to that, especially early on in my career. I would do anything to get that big pop, and like wrestling just fueled me. It was the only thing I was good at, like I say in that documentary, and it's still the only thing I'm good at that I love doing. I can make myself good at a lot of other things, but they just make me miserable. So. There was no way I was going to get this career taken away from me by any sort of injury. I was just going to persevere and push through.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit where they talk about you go to your first wrestling school and you just wanted to touch the ropes. You didn't want to you didn't want to take a bump or anything, and you just got in the ring. And second attempt at taking a bump, bang, right, yeah, you.
Yeah.
Is that something that maybe? Is it not just wrestling? Have you had kind of a sporting background where you've just been kind of athletically good at things?
I was very good at basketball, but I was a very, very big kid. So I couldn't be that good. But if I were to look at my like whole career playing soccer and then playing basketball or football, sorry. Like I was always athletically gifted, very coordinated. If I did something wrong and I got corrected by my coaches, I could fix it right away, which was my one benefit for professional wrestling training. If I did something wrong, I would never do it wrong twice once it was pointed out. Because it's just the way I learned. And when I started wrestling, I dedicated myself to losing weight and getting in better shape. And through that, I became a better athlete right away and could apply that to wrestling. And it was just, when I started wrestling, things just skyrocketed. They seemed to move with such crazy momentum that, I thought I was going to be signed after 4 or 5 years or somewhere doing all the things my heroes like Bryan Danielson, Nigel McGuinness, Alex Shelley, all these ROH guys were doing. But, it took me longer. I had some injuries derail me along the way. But I was definitely made to be a wrestler.
And so you just mentioned some of the Ring of Honor legends, and obviously Alex Shelley's now in Impact again. And you had those incredible matches towards the back end of this year with them. But so was it not just mainstream wrestling then that you were into? Were you one of those people that went out of your way to watch all types of wrestling, no matter if it was a big stage, or were you someone who kept your eye towards the indie scene as well?
I was diehard WCW, WWF in 1998, and I could only watch. My parents wouldn't let me watch wrestling for whatever reason, and I had to rent videos from my video store. So I would get pay-per-views that were 3 to 6 months old coming in as new releases, and I would rent those. So when I started liking wrestling, I think Uncensored 97 was the first tape I could rent, and through that, I discovered Eddie Guerrero and all these people. But other than reading Pro Wrestling Illustrated or The Observer, I couldn't get a background on any other wrestling. I would read things and see Keiji Muto and be like, I don't know who that is, but he's a champion every month on this list. He must be good in Japan. It wasn't until high school that me and my buddies, I kind of fell out of love with wrestling because I was, in high school playing basketball, all this other stuff. And I got really bored after the invasion with WWE. I did. Other than Booker T and The Rock, I kind of hated everything. I hated Stone Cold being the weird heel that he was and all this other stuff. He was my hero, and then now he's playing a guitar and doing these weird promos, and I was just I wasn't into it at the time. But we discovered EWR 4.0 Revenge, which is like an online booking game that was like, it's very rudimentary, but like it was a blast for us because the four of us would get together and we try to book. We'd have like a draft, and we draft all these guys. And like if I had Loki, you couldn't have Loki. If I had Kurt Angle, you couldn't have Kurt Angle. So through that, we were like, who's this Loki guy? Who's this AJ Styles guy? Their stats are the same as Kurt Angle. Like, this is insane. So I went to my local CD store and I found Ring of Honor DVDs I could order, and I had to pay like $50 a DVD to get them. But I ordered like 2 or 3 DVDs. And I remember watching the first one. I think it was the tournament show, which was like, I think the finish was like Bryan Danielson, Christopher Daniels, Loki, and somebody else in a 4-way, the finish to the tournament.
Yeah.
And just seeing Loki, honestly, changed my whole perspective on what professional wrestling could be. I had seen Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and all these people that I like looked up to as like in-ring technicians and like some of the best ever. But when I saw Loki, I was like, this is completely unique. And through that, I discovered indie wrestling up here and found a wrestling school not too long after. So.
Yeah, and you just said unique there. And I think one of the things that really draws people to the North matches, maybe if they've not seen Impact or they've not seen WWE, is you've got a unique look with the headgear and the singlet and things like that. What I know, the headgear's it's a collegiate wrestling kind of look in it. So did you want to bring that style of wrestling towards the professional wrestling as well?
I spent a lot of years on the independents trying to find what I was good at. And I found that I was kind of like a multi-tool guy. Like I would go in and I would just work towards whatever my opponent was. If my opponent was a lucha guy, I'd be basing and I'd be flying around because I'm fast for my size. If it was a technical guy, I would stay on the mat the entire time. Like I was comfortable in any scenario, brawling, you name it. And I still am, because that's what I've tried to do my entire career. But I was trying to find my own identity. And it took me a very long time. I was very successful before that, but like I was never anything where you'd go to a show and you'd be like, you would remember who Josh Alexander is. You'd be like, you would see like Sonny Kiss or, Marco Stunt, and you'd be able to remember their name right away because they stand out to you. Like Sonny Kiss has a crazy presentation that, you're not going to forget his name. But like me, I would be like, hey, that guy with blonde hair, that was pretty good. Like you wouldn't have a way to describe me, which is like, that's how you break it down of like marketability. And I actually injured my ear at AIW. I got kicked in the ear by ACH, and my ear, like you can see it now, it's kind of looks strange, but like it swelled up like the size of my fist like this, and then it split and it was like falling off my head. So my ear didn't come completely off, but it was like dangling over because it swelled so much and burst. So I had to go get surgery on my ear, and they had to pin it to my head. And this was right when I was coming up in the American Indies, making a name for myself. And they were just like, take 6 months off, because if you re-injure it, your ear canal is going to swell and we're not going to be able to fix it. You're going to be completely deaf in that ear. And I was like looking at my booking sheet being like, I'm getting momentum right now. Like I can't stop for 6 months. Are you out of your mind? Like, you know what? I'm going to order some amateur headgear online. I'll put that on and see if, I can move around with that and it's not going to affect my ear. And luckily, it completely protected my ear and kept me safe while I filled all these bookings. And then I kind of found my identity. I'm the guy that wears headgear and isn't Rick Steiner. Like there's only 2 of us.
You were barking around the ring.
For the first 6 months to a year, any show I went to, they would be barking. They would think I'm a total knockoff of Rick Steiner and all this stuff. But I'm lucky enough to say I've built my own identity over the past 6 or 7 years where I've been wearing headgear. So
yeah. So back to the very beginning. It says online, and you can never trust what they say online, but they say that one of the trainers was Johnny Devine, and you debuted in 2005, I believe. So that's around the time Johnny Devine was in TNA, I believe. What was it like being trained by him? Being able to pick his brain?
Anybody that knows the legends of Johnny Devine knows that being trained by him is probably one of the things you do not want to do. And that's not because he's not very knowledgeable and a very good trainer. I think he is instrumental in all the success I've had. He retrained me and taught me all those little things that I say that, you can call people out for that are under a microscope in a ring, especially right now with no crowds. He was the one that taught me how to make sure that nobody sees any holes in your game. But it was brutal. He was trained in the Heart Dungeon, and he was towards the end of the Heart Dungeon. So he's a smaller guy. So going into that school, he would get stretched every single day. They would try to make him quit every single day because he's 5'7", 5'8", and he's as stubborn, if not more, than me. And he said nothing was going to break him, and he made it through. But then he trained us the same way. So I remember going into training and having to do 1,000 Hindu squats in a row just because he was in a bad mood. And if you quit, well, guess what? You're not coming back. Like stuff like that. So, it definitely prepared me for what wrestling is, because anybody that you've seen, if you've been a fan of indie wrestling for, 2 years, you've seen countless names come and go. And that's because they weren't prepared for all the scenarios and the hardships and all this other stuff. And that training, that was one thing it did for me. It prepared me for anything.
Yeah, we had Ken Shamrock on a couple of months ago, and we were talking to him about training and his Lion's Den training facility that he's got. And he said, I could train anyone if I think they've got the wherewithal to actually just work through the pain. If you don't show that desire, then there's no point in me trying to train you.
Yeah, and I ran a school myself last year before COVID, and I had a lot of students that thought the training I was doing was extreme, because there's a lot of physical work that you have to do to train, like the Hindu squats, the push-ups, all that stuff. It's not just to make you look good, in a singlet or whatever. This is because the professional wrestling business is tough. If you think getting in a car and driving 12 hours to a show just to wrestle, make whatever money you make, and then drive 12 hours straight home because you don't have a hotel isn't tough, you're going to have to pay your dues for that stuff. So what's 250 Hindu squats compared to that? You just need to know that people have a passion for this and will do anything for it. And that's just one way you weed out those people.
So from training with Johnny Devine, do you feel like you've trained a bit with the Heart Dungeon, or do you feel like the Heart Dungeon may be even another step up from the training that you received from Devine?
I wouldn't say that I was trained in the Heart Dungeon or anything like that, but I think that I have an idea of what it was like, for sure.
So we'll go to a few questions and a few comments that we've had. We had a comment again from Joe. He said, if he wants to appear, what are your goals for 2021?
Just be a champion, build my name, be the biggest I can be going into 2022. I want to, I strive for constant improvement. I don't care what it is, whether it's in the gym or, my professional wrestling career. I can't stand still. So if things aren't moving up, I'm not happy. So I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen.
And we had a few on Twitter when we did announce this. SCW Wrestling wants to know what the future holds for the North.
I mean, I told Ethan Page last Tuesday on Impact that we cannot be a tag team right now. So as of right now, we are both singles competitors in Impact Wrestling, because he's just not Ethan Page. Ethan Page is all ego, right? And this guy you've been seeing every week, he doesn't seem to have an ego. He doesn't seem to have any confidence. So I need my best friend, my tag team partner back if we're going to be the North, because I don't think the North can be any less than what we presented for the last 2 years. And if we were to tag right now, I think we'd be giving people, something less than they're used to.
And he also asks, do you have any intentions of challenging for either the X Division or the TNA World title?
If I continue as a singles competitor in Impact Wrestling, I would love to be the Samoa Joe of the X Division and just run through all those little guys, because I'm just as fast as them, but I'm much stronger. But yeah, either way, I grew up, TNA got me back into professional wrestling with Ring of Honor and the guys like Loki, like I said earlier. And I want to knock off all the things off my bucket list that I dreamed of when I was 13 years old watching that.
And then Ringside with Chops, being in wrestling for so many years, how do you continuously strive to be your best in the ring over your career?
I I spent a lot of time as a wrestler not admitting I was a wrestler out in the real world because I didn't feel like I looked or presented myself as a wrestler. Like I was still, even for the first 5-6 years of me being in the business, I felt like I was like playing a wrestler rather than being a wrestler. So the first step was getting to the point where now, like, I might meet somebody new and they look at me and I go, "Oh, are you a wrestler or a fighter or something?" Like, people pick up on it. And I'm just always, like I said before, I can't stand still. I always want to improve. I always want to get better. I looked up to people like Eddie Guerrero is my favorite of all time. Like hands down. Guys like Rey Mysterio, guys like Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, all these guys, those technicians from WCW that you saw come up and make a huge name for themselves. I want to be on a list with those guys. I want to inspire young wrestlers like those guys. And if I'm not busting my ass working as hard as I possibly can, then I'm doing a disservice to those people.
I mean, that's an incredible way to look at it. And I mean, that shows the desire that you have to succeed in the wrestling business. Moving on, though, to PWG was something that I had to speak to you about because PWG got me into indie wrestling. I was training to be a wrestler over here. Clearly, I never made it, so I decided to speak about it instead. But PWG was one of the first indie shows I ever saw. I saw a tag team match, and it hooked me right away. And I've always been intrigued as to what the atmosphere is like backstage at one of those shows compared to the TV shows that you'd work on.
Our first tag match in PWG in Reseda was against the Young Bucks. And this was the Young Bucks at the height of the Bullet Club, at the height of their, like, the big, not even the height. They ascended to even further heights, obviously. But, like, this was, like, they were red hot. And I remember we went out first, and we're in the ring. And, like, the crowds, like, gave us a warm reception. They kind of knew who we were. Then the Young Bucks music hits. And the crowd was so loud their entire entrance. I turned to Ethan and I said, "Are you hearing this?" And he like looks at me and he like afterwards I was just like, "You didn't answer me. Like you didn't even talk back to me." He's just like, "I couldn't hear you. Like you couldn't hear somebody standing right beside you." That's how insane the crowd was. And like they're the greatest crowd like ever assembled. Like they're all like Progress, when I wrestled Progress, was pretty similar with like the chants and everything and like just how they respond to really good wrestling, which is amazing. But like Reseda is just so packed in there. You're talking about 400 people in a room that was like a third the size of that Progress crowd I did. And like, man, I'm sad that they left that venue. I'm sad that venue is shut down now because that place was just like the pantheon of pro wrestling for independence.
Yeah, I always thought that if someone had made it to a PWG show or you were being booked on a PWG show, I was like, that is the highlight. That's the spot that you want to be at if you're going to be noticed as on the independent scene. So do you think that the crowds that are at the PWG shows, and obviously because we're in this weird situation, there's no crowds at the moment, do you think those crowds are more red hot for the in-ring wrestling? There's no need for storylines for that.
Yeah, that place was like, especially there, like you kind of categorize it as like we say like hipster crowds or something. Like there's like a whole hipster community that like likes really good food and they like really good music and all this stuff. But they find like these little holes in the walls where they can get like the best tacos. Like PWG to me was the best independent that nobody knew about, and then everybody found out about it, right?
Yeah.
So like that's kind of like how I surmise how it grew. And then you had like celebrities start going. Like when I was there, the lady from Modern Family and her husband from Magic Mike were sitting front row. Like I almost fell on Sofia Vergara. Like it's a happening. Like everybody wants to be a part of it, even them. Like it's insane. I hope I'm right in saying this, but like when the independents do come back, and I really hope it does before 2022, because I want to get back on the independents before I have to do any more contracts. And if I ever do another contract, I don't want to lose out on the indies. I love wrestling on the indies. And if my next contract is exclusive somewhere, then that means, I'm just going to be on a TV somewhere, which is great. It's a dream, but like, I love the indies. I want to experience a little bit more before like I walk away from them. But I think the crowds are going to be red hot. I think they're going to be insane. I think people are just, the more lockdowns and all this other stuff happens, the second COVID goes away and people can get out, I think everybody's going to be living their best life. I think everybody's going to seize the moment. I think they're going to like not take anything for granted. And they're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to go to that wrestling show that I always passed up on because I was busy on Friday nights or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think when COVID does go, PWG could sell out an arena by the time because they'll be the most wanted tickets for a wrestling show ever.
I mean, they're running out of independent wrestlers real fast because it seems everybody's getting signed these days. But yeah, I sure hope so.
So actually, I was going to go on to a different topic, but I kind of want to stay on this because the Impact thing that I watched shows you getting your contract and being given it in the ring whilst working at a show. What was your emotion like being handed that piece of paper, being stood in the ring with the fans around you?
I got knocked out in the match I had right before that. I was the main event of the show, and Simon Grimm, he came up and he gave me a knee beside the ring, and I took the knee and my head went back and hit the post that comes across underneath the apron. And like I was asleep for like 3 seconds. And I woke up and I remembered everything and I got through the match because, you know, I'm a maniac. But I came through the curtain and I remember I took a knee for a second to catch my breath and I hear like, you know, Josh Alexander come out here, all this stuff. And I go and I stand in the ring with Scott, and I've known Scott for 15 years. And I've never known Scott to show a single goddamn emotion at all. And as he's cutting that promo to give me this contract that he knows that I've busted my ass for, come back from neck surgeries and all this other stuff for, and made myself better than I ever was. Like, I think he understood how much work went into me getting that opportunity because, like, his lip was quivering. He was getting emotional. And, like, that's not any Scott D'Amore I ever knew. To the point where, like, he swears when he gives me the contract because he was so worked up. And, like, I was more like, this is happening. This is like, because there was rumors that this was going to happen. Like I was going to get offered a contract by one of two companies, and it happened. And I was just like expecting it, but at the same time, I was not expecting Scott to get emotional. So I was stuck at the moment, looking at him, being like, "Is this really like? Are you actually doing this right now?" And then like for it to happen in Destiny, which is like my home promotion here in Canada. It's run by George Iceman, and he brings in like the top talent from around the world. He had Pete Dunne for 2 years while he was in WWE as UK champion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just brings these marquee matchups that you could never imagine seeing somehow on the independents. And for like that crowd to be the crowd that shared that moment with me, meant, and like it was insurmountable. It was amazing.
Yeah, you just mentioned Pete Dunne. I think that's one of the matches that I want to see on TV with no crowd, because Pete Dunne works well with a crowd or without a crowd because he does the little things so well. But you and Pete Dunne would probably tear the house down with nobody even being there. But you touched on the neck injuries. Do you regret working through the first two?
No, I can't say I do. The first neck surgery is the one I came back after 6 weeks instead of 6 months. And if I didn't do that, I would not have been in PWG. In that, I wouldn't have that story that I just told you earlier, because I would have still been out rehabbing that. And like, for me to look back and say I regret, I would take things back, I can't do that, because you know, they say your position right now might not be the same. And I'm very happy with where I'm at right now. Everything I've been able to accomplish. I feel like I'm just entering my prime. I'm in the best shape of my life because of this COVID thing over the last year. I've been able to concentrate on myself and my injuries and stuff. And like, you know, I think moving forward, I've just put myself in the best position possible to maximize what I can do. So no, I would not change a thing.
And then obviously you went and you had the fusion surgery. And obviously, in what I watched, they tell you that you're not going to be able to wrestle again. take us back to that mindset when they turn around and they say to you, "That's it." What is your mind going to at that point?
I had been expecting the worst from the doctor, so like when he said it, I was just like, "Oh yeah, no problem," you know. And then it wasn't until I walked out of the doctor's office into the parking lot and I looked at my phone and I was just like, you know, it hit you like that, like brisk iced tea thing when they fall into the water, and like I was just like, what am I going to do? Like, I called Ethan Page right away. He was the first person I called. I called him before I even got to my truck, and you know, he's a very positive, very like, you know, he's the one that reassures me. I'm the pessimist of the group for sure, and or realist, however you look at it. But he, you know, he reassured me that everything was going to be fine. You know, I could find something without wrestling, and like that's what after wrestling, when I had to retire, like he made sure that I went out how I wanted to. He helped me run an Alpha One show for a benefit for me, and I ended up making some money off of it, so that my time off was, you know, a little more comfortable. But you know, it was very emotional. You know, I'm losing my first love, what I thought was my only love at the time, and you know, I was just very happy when I found out I could get it back, and you know, it all transpired that way.
Yeah, and I think there's been a bit of a resurgence with a lot of people's neck injuries coming back. Like obviously you've had Edge and Daniel Bryan as well as two main ones that have come back from having big neck surgeries and big neck injuries. But as being someone who's obviously come back and they said to you after the surgery that it wasn't as bad as what they originally thought, does part of you watch maybe Edge and Daniel Bryan matches and you kind of go, maybe you need to take it a bit steady, or do you agree full forward, just go for it while you can?
Yeah, like a single level fusion, it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal anymore. As you've listed all these people as single level fusions. Edge, I think he has 3 levels fused, which is a little more insane to me. I don't know how that's working, but you know, he's also working for the biggest company in the world, and they can probably afford all these medical things that I don't even know about. So I personally, when I came back to wrestling, my first match back was against Ruby Riott in Alpha One, and I was like the big bad heel that returned and stole the title belt, and she was going to be the first female to win the championship of that company. And you know, the way it was set up, I remember she had to give me a Saito suplex as part of the match, and I was very nervous. But like, I trust her, so you know, we did it. And I remember I held back a little bit, and because I held back a little bit, I didn't hurt my neck. I hurt my shoulder taking the move, and like it was so stupid. And then like literally, I wrestled the next weekend on a different show, and I said I'm not holding back anymore. Like I have to wrestle like I used to. I can't wrestle thinking that I need to be careful about this or try to cover this, or you know what I mean, because I'm just gonna hurt other things trying to overcompensate. And you know what? I will avoid taking a package pile driver ever again. Like if you ever see me take a package pile driver again, know that somebody put $1 million in my bank account. Like, there's certain moves that where I'm just like, no, I'm not taking a cop killer. Like you can pay me for the rest of my career if I like hurt myself then. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's certain moves where I don't feel like I can protect myself. And
Yeah,
like, that's the precaution I take. But like I'm like, as I said, I'm very athletic and coordinated. I am very good at protecting myself, and I've really taught myself that over the past 7 years.
we've got a comment here from Archie with the North. Thank you for joining us at the Buzz. Archie's our resident Canadian. He does all the promo videos that you love so much.
Christopher Nolan. All right.
Yeah, because there was an incident on Impact where Alex Shelley took a pile driver on the ramp, yeah, and he ended up with injury, and I can't remember if it was a disc or something. Maybe he did it at the top of his neck or his back. When you saw that, did you go, oh god, yeah, maybe that was a bad idea?
No, not at all. I've given that move to, you know, hundreds of people. I've executed that move 1,000 times. I know that I can put anybody within a centimeter of the ground and not hurt them whatsoever, but make it look like I did. And that's exactly what I did at Bound for Glory with Alex Shelley. Alex Shelley did not suffer an injury because of me giving him a pile driver. no matter what anybody wants to think and call me reckless and all this other stuff, guess what? You just got fooled by professional wrestling. That's it.
So yeah, we've gone through the layers of the career. We're peeling it back, and there's still so many more layers of your career to come. And like you said, you're in the prime of your career at the moment with Impact Wrestling. Is the be all and end all for Josh Alexander Impact Wrestling? Or I'm not saying that Impact Wrestling is not a top level, but I'm saying is Impact Wrestling where you're happy being at?
Yeah, I never had that daydream of being the main event of wrestling. Like so many other wrestlers, like they dreamt about, winning the Royal Rumble and going on to WrestleMania. Like I never had that daydream. Because, it sounds really impossible. One in how many thousands of people get to that opportunity. But also because like I was a fan of the workhorses. Like I listed them all before. I want to make a name for myself so that I have a legacy where I'm not forgotten. And I think the North has done a really good job of that in 2 years, 2 short years. We've already, in my opinion, I think we've eclipsed every tag team in Impact history that you can name, other than like the Dudley Boys and stuff who made their names elsewhere. But any homegrown team from Impact, I think we're up there with all of them. But like, I want to continue doing that. I want to wrestle in Japan. I've never wrestled in Japan. I've wrestled countless Japanese people when they come over to Canada or the US. And every time it's just, the best. And I want to travel to Japan. I want to wrestle everywhere all over this planet. I want to go back to the UK. I just want to be the guys I looked up to. I want to be like Bryan Danielson back in the day, just making a living, flying around. I don't care what company it's for. I love Impact Wrestling. I will stay with Impact Wrestling for the rest of my life if, it's all best case scenarios and everyone, gets along. But like, wrestlers are mercenaries. We're independent contractors. We go wherever, people want us. And if Impact doesn't want me in the future and somebody else does, then you'll see me there because nothing's going to stop me from this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who do work over in Japan do come back and say it is an experience that you have to do to fully understand, because I think Steve Austin says the fans work in a different way. They don't pop for the same things, so you've got to change your style, and it's probably a lot more hard hitting. So is that like one of the dream destinations for Josh Alexander?
Absolutely. And like the one like kick in the pills that happens every single time I wrestle somebody new, like first time I wrestled Shelly or the first time I wrestled Carl Anderson or anything like that. First thing they say is like, "Hey man, have you ever been to Japan?" I go, "No." And they go, "Oh man, you'd be great over in Japan." Yeah, that's great. Awesome. I'll just keep waiting. 15 years, no problem.
Maybe you might have to give a few nudges, put a good word in for you.
Yeah. I'll buy him a few beers and see what I can do.
Yeah, we've run through a hell of a lot of things here, and I mean, for 15 years in the business, you've changed the way that tag team wrestling has been looked at over the past few years with the North, especially in Impact Wrestling. I just want to, as a fan of the wrestling business, I want to say thank you for putting yourself through the pain that you've put yourself through with the neck surgeries, the working whilst hurt, and then for the tag team of being in the North, because without you, I think tag team wrestling doesn't, I know like Young Bucks and people like that, but I think for Impact Wrestling, tag team wrestling doesn't get looked at the same way that singles competitive wrestling gets looked at. So the North put tag team wrestling on the map 2019, 2020, 2018, wherever you want to look at it. So I wanted to say thank you for both of those.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. It was our goal, number one goal. We started tagging. We just wanted to make sure everybody noticed tag team wrestling, because like LAX and Penta and Phoenix were the ones there before us. And when they left, there was this huge hole missing in the tag division. We wanted to set our goal real high and make people forget about like America's Most Wanted and Beer Money and all these other teams. And hopefully we've at least somewhat chipped away at that.
Yeah, and you know for a fact that you're going to get all the Impact Wrestlings going, oh, dream matches. We wish we could have seen you versus Beer Money and you versus R-Truth and BG James and people like that. All the teams from back in the days. Your name is always going to be thrown around in the dream tag team matches.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like, because that's what I did as a fan. So,
but I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I'm incredibly honored that you've taken the time out of your day to come on the show today to be able to speak to us. If anybody is watching Armchair Wrestling and they've not checked out Josh Alexander as a singles competitor, or you've not checked out the North, make sure you go to Impact Wrestling, check out the North, check out all the indie promotions that you worked for before Impact Wrestling. Go to YouTube, check them out, because you will not be disappointed. Also, you can follow you on, I believe you're on Twitter and Instagram at walking_weapon.
yes, sir. That's correct. And from there, you can just find my Teespring store if you want to support anything. I got some cool merch up there. I'm not a big merch guy, but, you know.
And as always, you can come follow us. It's on screen, Armchair Wrestle 1. You can also listen to all our previous episodes on Spotify and on iTunes as well. And all our live streams with interviews are on our Twitter, so you can just scroll back through and have a look at some of the amazing names that we've been able to interview this year. And what a way to end the year off by speaking to one of the best tag team and singles wrestlers currently working in Impact Wrestling today.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure to be here anytime.
So that'll do us for this episode of Armchair Wrestling. We've been joined by Josh Alexander. Make sure you also go to WTB.com on Twitter and on Facebook. Make sure that you like that, because we do go live on Facebook and Twitter through there as well. But again, guys, what a great interview and a pleasure to be able to do this. So make sure you check out what we've got coming up for the new year. This will probably be the last thing that we do for this year. But again, thank you, Josh, and we will see you in the next episode.